Hi everybody, it's Miss Kate, and this week is all about worms. Last week we learned all about Community Circle. Have you been paying attention to your breaths more and using some of those tools to breathe in and breathe out? I hope you have. Do we think that worms have ears? Do we think they have eyes? How do they know where they're going? What body parts do worms have? If worms don't have feet like we do, how do they move around? Sometimes we can be scared of the dark. Do we think worms can be too? Or do they like it? Take a moment to ask yourself some of these questions, and then together we will observe or look at a worm. Different animals use different body parts in order to see, hear, move from place to place, to gather food, water, air, and today we're going to discover how worms do this.
Worms are fascinating. Have you ever gone outside after it rains and it seems like worms are everywhere? One theory is that earthworms find it easiest to move across the soil surface when it's wet to find food, a new habitat, or mate. So grab your shovel and start digging. Once you've found your worm, remember to handle it very gentle. Worms are fragile, and although they can't hear us, they can feel our vibrations, so speak quietly. We don't want them to think we're a predator and wiggle away. Now grab a magnifying glass and begin to observe your worm. There are many different parts. Although this worm looks like it has a tongue, it's called a stylet, and some worms have them. This is the saddle. Eggs are stored in the saddle. This is the head of the worm. It is closest to the saddle. Worms also have 5 hearts that pump blood through its body. The hearts are found in different segments. Segments are kind of like an orange when you peel it and there's different sections. In each segment or section, there are muscles and bristles called setae.
Setae helps the worm move forward.
If you look closely, you can see tiny little bristles. The tail is furthest away from the saddle. Now that you've done some observing, it's time to do experiments. One experiment you can do is taking a water droplet and placing it on a little piece of paper or coffee filter. See if the worm travels toward the water or away. You can also do a light versus dark experiment by folding a paper into a tent. Will the worm travel toward the dark or away? Last, you can measure your worm. Form a hypothesis. How long do you think the worm is when it's stretched out? After your experiments, remember to place the worm back to its home. And don't forget to wash your hands. And remember, worms are awesome.
After learning so much about worms, what do you think you will do next time you see one? How will you treat it? If you were able to find a worm to hold, how did you feel when you were holding it? Did you feel brave? Did you feel worried? Did you feel excited? Take a moment to really think on how holding this worm made you feel. What surprised you the most about worms? What did you already know? Do you feel different about worms now? I hope you enjoyed learning all about them, and make sure to tune in next week. See you then.